Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for joining us. Here are your top stories.
Well, it's a real mess. Obviously, the system, the association is broken.
We've been seeing an influx of Americans lately, hopefully maybe due to the ArriveCan app.
We expect questions on taxes. Taxes is a huge issue, and affordable housing in Windsor.
We start tonight with the scandal rocking rinks across the country. Hockey Canada losing major sponsors and now senior leaders in the organization. People in Windsor say that hockey culture needs to change. The CBC's TJ Deer joins me now live in studio for more on this. TJ, what are you hearing today?
Well, as you can imagine, there are people in Windsor, Essex who are not pleased with how Hockey Canada has operated behind the scenes over the years. Just to recap, the national sports body has faced widespread criticism over how it handled gang rape allegations connected with Canada's World Junior teams from 2003 and 2018. Millions of dollars have also been spent in payouts to sexual assault claims. As a result, Hockey Canada's CEO and their entire board of directors all stepped down yesterday. This decision was welcomed by Federal Sports Minister Pascal Saint-Onge. Many of Hockey Canada's sponsors have also left in light of the scandal. I hit the streets today and spoke with 3 hockey fans, one of whom actually coached at the high school level. None of them were happy with Hockey Canada and their behavior, and they say the wider scandal harms the reputation of Canada itself.
I mean, I coached I was in high school for years and I coached, and to see someone in a form of power take that unfortunate opportunity, that's where it's we got to put the trust back into that system. Hopefully it's going to be, the wrong is going to be righted, and you know, we carry forth on as a nation, because hockey is our sport, so I hope it gets cleared up.
It's very deteriorating to Canada's reputation itself, and it just destroys, you know, Canada and who we are and everything that we have against us. I think it's just very deteriorating to us ourselves.
I mean, hockey culture has been like this forever. We all have to evolve. Things are not the same they were as 20 years ago, so, you know, we all have to evolve, and that includes the sport of hockey. I'm still going to watch hockey. That's not going to change, but it just, the management needs to change, the directives need to change, and obviously we need to do things faster.
TJ, what have you heard from people who have the power to make decisions at the grassroots level?
Well, I reached out to the Windsor Minor Hockey Association, but they did not respond to any of my requests to talk about the issue. I did speak with Richard Petty, who is the former president and CEO of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. That's the organization that owns the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Raptors, among other teams in Toronto. He told me that he believes the problem with hockey and hockey culture are what's causing the problems, not only at the highest level, but also at grassroots level.
It is a different sport. There's no doubt about that. I see it kind of a closed sport. You know, it's a sport that doesn't kind of encourage expression. It's an expensive sport to get involved in it, to come up and ever have an ambition to play in the NHL. So that's what I saw. My other kind of point of reference is basketball. It's so grassroots, it's so diverse. I mean, the Raptor fans look like Toronto, and the Leaf fans don't look like Toronto anymore. So that's my view. It's just a different sport, and maybe that's built into the players right from the get-go, not to show emotion, not to speak out, not to be overly involved in the community. It's just a different sport. It's a great sport, but it's a pretty conservative, don't go out of your lane type sport. Very, very much so.
Now, Petty added that training to end instances of discrimination and harassment needs to be done at the grassroots level. He also said that any offenders, whether they be players or coaches, need to leave the game. And a final note, Halifax is set to host the World Junior Tournament in December, the city confirming that it will move ahead with the tournament. Kat?
Thanks for that, TJ. That's CBC's TJ Deer live in studio for us tonight. It's been 2 weeks since Canada lifted the border restrictions. That's big news for a border city like ours. And we've heard business owners talk about how tough it's been to recover with those in place. As Del Molnar reports, there are signs Americans are coming back.
It just makes it easier to come by, you know.
This Michigan man traveled to Windsor when ArriveCan was mandatory, but he's glad it's optional now. Michael and Cindy Fanderis from Ohio don't have a smartphone, so they tell CBC News they were glad the ArriveCan app was gone when they came here on Tuesday. Americans make up 40% of the business at El Mayor restaurants, so they're glad to see them back.
We see all these families again. We see them reunite here and choose our restaurant to have that place to reunite. And it's the best feeling in the world to see that again.
The co-owner of Mezzo Restaurant estimates the American clientele are up about 10 to 15%.
They obviously usually spend the night here or, venture off to the casino afterwards. So the influx of American clientele here is great for business.
A spokesperson for Caesars Windsor says more Americans are coming since October 1st, but they offer no numbers. The numbers here at the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel support the claims by the business people. Vehicle traffic here at the tunnel has increased dramatically since last month. There is no breakdown between Canadian and American vehicles, but the data from the Canadian side shows an increase in vehicle traffic since October 1st of 7,000 vehicles compared to last month. The American data show a 74% increase over this time last year. Back then, non-essential U.S. travelers to Canada had to show proof of vaccination and take a costly COVID test. Testing restrictions were lifted on April 1st of this year. Local tourism officials are advertising the easing of border restrictions through social media, digital advertising, and their website, crossingmadeeasy.com. The Stratford Festival is taking matters in their own hands. They launched a $50,000 media campaign targeting Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Buffalo on October 1st.
We had heard that there was a perception that the ArriveCan app was a barrier to crossing the border, particularly for people who are just coming up for a day or 2 days. So telling those people that that piece of the puzzle was now removed and the process is simpler was a really important message for us.
Americans make up 25% of their business. They say it's too early to tell how successful the campaign will be this year. All the businesses we talk to say American visitation is still not up to normal levels. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
A big night for people who want to become Windsor's next mayor. The Canadian Federation of University Women will host a panel tonight, and all the candidates are invited to attend. Nikki Carlin helps organize the event and joins us now. Thank you, Nikki, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start, Nikki, what candidates will be there tonight?
All of the candidates, I just heard from Mr. Dilkins at 3:07 indicating that he has a previous engagement. It's unfortunate that he couldn't have shared that information 3 weeks ago when we invited him. But anyways, all of the candidates except Mr. Dilkins, and I have not heard from Mr. Lamont.
Okay, and what topics will be discussed this evening?
This evening, we want to talk about long-term care in the city and what the municipality is planning to do, how to beautify and enjoy our waterfront, how to create diversity in hiring at all levels of the government. And, I'm just pulling up my question. The other questions that have come up are the rate of taxes and the problem in the city, and homelessness and the addiction rate in the city.
Mm-hmm. I want to zero in a little bit further on the area of diversity, equity, inclusion that you mentioned at the city. You'll be talking to candidates about that. Why was that a priority for you and your group?
Well, our group is diverse, and we want to we want to offer as many opportunities as possible for everybody who lives in Canada and in Ontario and in Windsor. And we were concerned with the report earlier when the mayor was unable to call the diversity chair when they were trying to diversify the police force. There are ongoing concerns with the school board and the city employees to ensure that we have a diverse community that represents everybody.
Yeah, can you speak a little further to that about how else you think the current council has done where that's concerned, how they've been doing?
Not very well as far as we can tell. We haven't seen any senior positions filled by people from different communities. And we haven't really addressed the issue as significantly as we should.
Mm-hmm. And tonight the panel is going to open up questions to the audience as well. What do you expect from the audience?
Well, we expect questions on taxes. Taxes is a huge issue, and affordable housing in Windsor, not geared to income housing, but affordable housing. From my friends in the dog park, who I speak with regularly, and my friends will attest to, It appears that you can't get a one-bedroom apartment in the city of Windsor for less than $1,300 a month. It's virtually impossible to have any savings if you're making $20 an hour and having to pay $1,300 a month. We have to think about different ways to offer affordable housing to the people in the lower and middle income brackets.
It'll be interesting to see how candidates respond to all that. Thanks for that, Nikki.
Okay.
Nikki Carlin is organizing tonight's mayoral panel, and you can watch it in person at the University of Windsor Armories on University Avenue. It starts at 7 p.m. And Windsor Morning host Nav Nanwa has been interviewing the people who want to be the city's next mayor. A lot of his questions have come from you. Here's part of his interview with the man who wants to remain mayor of Windsor, Drew Dilkins.
He has been very cavalier about public transit, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to change your mind about how the city should support, with provincial and federal assistance, should support increasing and improving public transit in Windsor?
That was Windsor resident Jenny Jacobson. So what's your response to her question?
Well, listen, I think let's go back and just look at the track record. Since 2018, compared to 2022, we've increased the operating budget at Transit Windsor by 25%. We've increased services. Service now operates to Amherstburg, Leamington, LaSalle, Kingsville, and Essex. We have changed 190 bus shelters, added 20 more. We purchased 43 new buses. We added 518X route. And so we have made huge investments in our transit over the last 4 years. The difference between me and my opponent, Chris Holt, is that in the middle of a pandemic, when you had drivers not wanting to come to work because of fear, you had ridership down over 90%, you had huge issues with homelessness and addiction playing out on your bus system because transit was free, and a whole host of other social issues that took place there. He wanted to continue to make investments that add to the bottom line of the city that you and I would pay for when ridership is down 90%. I would never do that. I think that was probably one of the worst business decisions play out around the city council table, trying to push that type of investment at that particular time. Every single member of city council, myself included, put our hand up to support the transit master plan. We believe with and agree with the concepts that are in that plan, but we have to rationalize from a business perspective how we roll out the implementation of that plan, and can't be wed to the fact that the plan said in 2021 we were going to do X, Y, and Z, but not pivot when you're in the middle of a global pandemic that ought to necessarily change the way that you approach those investments. You will always have me wanting to champion all of the services that we provide, improvements in all of the services that we provide, but you will always know that I'm going to put a sound eye to when this should happen, how it happens, and to the bottom line as well.
Just based on some of the conversations we've been having on Windsor Morning, it seems like a lot of residents do want easier ways to get around in the city, and not everybody can afford a car. And Mayor, if I can even put my own personal experience in this, when I was moving here, I was looking for public transit options to get to work, and when I was doing the calculations, it would take me 10 minutes just to drive, but close to 30 minutes to hop on a bus to get to work. How do you get people to take transit when there's not an efficient option available right now?
I think you have to make the improvements in an incremental way. You are not going to saddle the bottom line of the city with the types of dollars and cents that we're talking about. If you were to implement the entire transit master plan, it would be unaffordable. You would not be able to have an affordable city in the city of Windsor if you decided to implement the transit master plan all at once. That's what Chris Holt has said he's going to do. Included in that transit master plan is the construction of a new transit garage. That transit garage would not improve the service delivery for a single user of the transit system, but the garage mahal would cost $300 million. He committed to deliver that garage without even knowing what the price was. See, that's the difference in our decision making. I will always make sure I understand what we're doing. I will find a way to do things practically and sensibly, and not make commitments without knowing what the dollars and cents are to the people who are paying the bill.
I want to turn to another question. This is from Samuel Collins, another Windsor resident that we met while doing our outreach.
What are we doing to help the homelessness issue and the addiction issues in downtown Windsor and all around Windsor itself?
You touched on earlier about the 24-hour drop-off centers that you'd like to create for EMS and police services for some of these people, but clearly the homelessness is still a major issue in our city. What's your plan for that?
Well, listen, this is again another continental issue. This is not just a City of Windsor issue, and we've been championing very, very loud for more funding for affordable housing. the type of project that we're doing with Meadowbrook. And we have been very, very clear on the housing and homelessness front. Let me tell you what we did during the pandemic at Waterworld. We saw that there was an issue. We opened something called the H4, the Housing and Homelessness Help Hub, which was a place for people experiencing homelessness to go during the day, but we wrapped around the services there. So we have housing folks that are there, we have a nursing practitioner, we have wound care, we have addiction and counseling and support, we have mental health counselors who are there. We actually have moved 30 people from that process who were never even on our by names registry list from homelessness into housing.
Live look outside there. Special weather statement is in effect today because of all that wind, but it should be winding down overnight. Josiah will be here after the break with your weather. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is time for a look at our weather forecast with Josiah Sinanen. Josiah, thank you for being here once again.
Happy to be back.
A windy day.
It is. Right now it is blustery outside. It's a little bit rainy and that wind is going to only increase in speed. There is a wind warning from Environment Canada right now. Gusts will increase up to 70 kilometers an hour, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Let's take a look at that 5-day forecast, and we'll provide some more details here. So that is a south wind tonight. We are going to see some rain continuing through the evening, a low of 8 and a risk of thunderstorms, so not the best weather ahead. Tomorrow, a 30% chance of showers during the day, high of 13 and dropping to 5 degrees in the evening. That rain will slow for Friday, but it will be a chilly one, high of only 10 with a mix of sun and cloud. And Saturday and Sunday, expect cloud cover all day. Those showers restarting on Saturday evening. We'll see highs of 12 for both days. And you know, Kat, that rain will be a welcome thing for some of our viewers. It's been a bit of a dry spell, and it also makes the perfect cozy conditions to check out BookFest this weekend.
That'll be very exciting, and I know that you talked about this on Afternoon Drive, so give us the rundown.
Well, I did, and you know, this is my first BookFest. It's actually their first time back in person after a few years. Here's our organizers, Irene Moore-Davis and Sarah Jarvis, as well as one of the authors, Kim Conkin, and they're all involved this year, and they're really excited to check out what's going to be next. This is also an author I spoke to on Afternoon Drive. This is Carl Jurgens from the University of Windsor, and he's presenting his 5th book, The Razor's Edge. It's a collection of short stories. And lastly, I got to talk to a playwright. This is Michelle MacArthur. This is some of the characters in her play. She's going to be doing a stage reading of a 3-part play all about millennials. So it's called Voice of Our Generation. A little bit of something for everyone, and really cool to see that there's such a literary community here in Windsor. I didn't really realize that when I moved here.
100%, and I love seeing a play being featured there. I'm a theater major originally, so always exciting to see that. Thanks so much,
It
Josiah.
is. You're welcome. And if you want to check out BookFest, it does kick off tomorrow in Sandwich Town at Mackenzie Hall at 6:30 p.m. All the details are on bookfestwindsor.com, so check that out.
Awesome. Thanks, Josiah.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kat.
And when we come back, an unusual bird sighting here in Windsor. We'll have that for you after the break. Stay with us.
home.
Welcome back. In international news, Canada is spending $47 million in more military aid for Ukraine. It includes ammunition as well as winter wear.
Furthermore, Ukraine has specifically asked for winter clothing, and that is why we are responding with 500,000 pieces of winter clothing, and in particular hats, gloves, boots, and pants and parkas. Those are the items that we know will be useful for Ukrainian soldiers on the front line.
Defense Minister Anita Anand made the announcement from Brussels, where she was meeting with her NATO counterparts. A large part of the new money is for howitzer ammunition. The new round of supplies also includes high-tech cameras that Ukrainians use in their drones. Ottawa had set aside $500 million in its spring budget to help Ukraine. That money was used up mostly to buy 39 new armored support vehicles for Ukrainian forces. Extreme weather events are hitting the global wine industry hard. Grapes are extremely sensitive to changes in temperature and season. France, for instance, saw its smallest harvest since 1957 last year, costing the industry around $2 billion US in sales. Here in Ontario, wineries are also feeling the effects of climate change. Ithel Musa has more on how they're adapting.
And then the Pinot Noir, but this is where, if you want to see the damage.
Bob Nedelko says heavy rains last fall, followed by freezing temperatures, caused some of his grapevines to die.
That's a replant. That one is dead. There's another replant.
When he bought this vineyard in Ontario's Niagara region 14 years ago, he knew there would be some good years and some bad. Climate change wasn't something he thought about, but he says that's now changed.
I've been able to witness some of the effects of it over time.
Hotter summers, spring frosts, and flooding can wreak havoc on wineries. But some experts say when it comes to weather events linked to climate change, the news isn't all bad.
We tend to dwell on the negative aspects of climate change, but for Canada, there are benefits. So we need to find ways in which we can exploit the benefits of climate change.
Shaw, whose research focuses on climate and the wine industry, says the temperature in Ontario has been steadily increasing over the last 50 years. In a cool climate area like the Niagara region, that's led to longer, warmer growing seasons, which is favorable for some popular varieties of wine. But there's a flip side.
You have significant fluctuation within the season. In other words, no two seasons are the same. So there is a great deal of volatility, and the growers then have to contend with that volatility.
Helping future winemakers navigate that unpredictability is Gavin Robertson. He says decades ago, growers didn't discuss things like setting up wind machines to help pull warm air down on cold nights. But today the conversation has changed.
It's the framework that we address any of the specific grape growing or winemaking operations. It's just, it's woven into everything we do now in the industry and therefore in education.
And Robertson's students are learning how to adapt.
Climate change can really affect the quality of the grapes. And if they're not harvested at the right time, in the right temperatures, this can actually affect a lot of production.
Wine experts say knowing how to mitigate the effects of climate change is critical in education and for the future of the industry. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario.
The weather also changing what kind of feathered friends we find out here. Birders are flocking to Windsor this week in search of a rare tropical bird spotted along the Detroit River.
That's not it. That's not it. Oh, man. But have they been seeing it? It has been seen this morning. It was, yeah, I know that.
Oh, yeah. Look at that crowd. Some are from the GTA, all here in Sandwichtown, trying to spot the tropical kingbird. It's hiding up there on a branch. Now you see it right there. Normally it's found in the tropics. And we're about to see it fly away. There it goes. And here's a better look at the bird. This photo is from Eddie Bobian. Usually you find the tropical kingbird in the Gulf of Mexico. It's very rare for people to spot it in Canada. And experts tell us it's likely here because of the hurricanes, which can pull birds up to our area. And those birders, they are pumped.
It did pay off. It certainly did. It doesn't always, but usually I've been pretty lucky. in the past, and thankfully today as well. Although I kind of thought I might miss it, but here it is.
So that's the most fun thing, is when you get a rare bird and you share it with other people that are there at the same time. I've gotten really rare birds and been in the middle of nowhere all by myself, and it's like, high five? No one did a high five. So you have to. I do share them on Instagram so that people can follow me, and I can follow other people who are doing the same thing.
I love that excitement. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.